Showtime. We are live. Hello to everybody. I'm going to do the obligatory sharing into a group, which hopefully won't take a minute, and then we'll bring my amazing guest in. Let's have a look. Hopefully, we've appeared on the timeline. Yes, we have. That's fabulous. Leonie's got a beautiful smile on her face. Um, Share to a group. How are you energy healing? Turn. Okay, I can put his face down now. Oops. And we'll get going. So, hello and a warm welcome to you all. My next guest is somebody I'd wanted to reach out to for the longest time. And to my delight, she was only too happy to gift us all an interview. She's a doctor of psychology, a transformational coach, and focuses on remaining young even into your more senior years. If you've ever held a belief in aging or wonder what on earth I'm talking about, then this interview is for you. I mean, everyone ages at the same rate, right? How on earth do you have any control over that, I hear you ask? Well, we'll be getting right into this topic for sure. And on a different note, it's also highly topical with depression and suicide. It's on the rise, with another high profile figure, Keith Flint, the prodigy, taking his own life earlier in the week, tragically. So we've decided to cover this topic as the earth plane is starving for a new understanding of how the mind works and how you can better navigate the emotional pain that we all experience. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to bring you Dr. Leonie Morris. Leonie, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I am truly honoured. Thank you so much for everyone giving up your precious time. I hope that I don't let you down. I hope that you hear the truth in my words. I'm going to be sharing my own story as well as my own thinking on depression and staying younger, longer. So lots of really interesting stuff to share today. But I hope there's something that's poignant for you, that really resonates, that encourages you to think, inspires you. So I'm so happy to be here. Thanks, Danny.
Nice one. What a humble and inspiring introduction. I'm just going to jump on the comments for a moment for me. We've got 6 viewers online already and counting. We've got Colleen Ferguson Smith who is saying morning. Hi, Colleen. How wonderful to have you join us. We've got Juliet Owens as well saying good morning. Hi, Juliet, to you. As always, we encourage your comments, your questions for your Leonie as we move through this interview, not least because the more questions and comments that there are, Facebook, the algorithm picks it up and shows this to more people. And it's on some poignant and important issues as well. Right, so if we can get going, Leonie, if I can have to say I'm tongue-tied. If you can share some of your backstory with the viewers, because I know your training is a doctor of psychology, and I don't know how far back you want to go back, but I'd certainly love you to start talking from at least that point. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Jenny. I think it's interesting because it's my life. So of course I think my life's interesting, but it's I've had a few dark moments like many people, and life has a way of throwing us curveballs. So I've hit some bad times and I've hit some amazing times. I was first interested in psychology as a really young child. I think I came from a very, very bright family. So my dad is a nuclear physicist. Wow. And my mum is a biochemist. And I have 4 brothers who are all older than me. And we're all used in every kind of O-level or A-level or degree level program where I was following in their footsteps. Things that they did in their exams were used as model answers. So, it wasn't tough for me to follow that at all. All these very, very bright brothers that I had. But I was actually one of those nerdy kids who was taken off to university at the tender age of 12. And what I saw was that being bright does not always serve you. So it means that you're thinking a lot, maybe too much. You're always in your head. And quite often people are fearful of confronting someone who is coming from that type of a background, and you find yourself basically knocking heads with people, struggling to identify, struggling to be on the same level. And I realized that emotional intelligence would actually be far more useful to me than academic, than IQ. IQ got me nowhere, got me bullied as a kid, got me into some strange places, got me doing mass spectrometry at the age of 12, but it didn't help me at all. So I realized very early on that I needed to understand what goes on in our minds, how to better relate to people, how to have more joy, how to let go of being serious, how to let go of being a nerd, how to let go of feeling isolated, really. And so I actually got my doctorate pretty young. I think I was only 21 when I got my doctorate. So a long time ago now. And I've been studying psychology for over 30 years, or practicing psychology for 30 years. But to be honest, psychology was a huge disappointment to me. So I know we're going to come on and talk about suicide. And I am someone who has tried to commit suicide 2 times. Obviously, I'm here today, so I've lived to tell the tale. But psychology didn't serve me. It didn't help me get out of a stuck place. And I have learned so much more since trying to take my own life. And I think it wasn't till I was in my 30s that I would say I became truly conscious and alive to who I really am, and the amazing resilience and strength that the human spirit, kind of gives to us. We see ourselves as this crappy little bodysuit. We relate to a story that our parents have inculcated, that we develop through our childhoods. And I, for one, can tell you that the stories we have about ourselves are incredibly damaging. They can really hold us back. So if I can share any kind of, any small iota of the learning that I've got about how amazing we all are, how strong we all are, and how seeing things from a different level of consciousness, understanding how life really works, can absolutely change. On a pinhead, one moment I was thinking I was worthless and that the world would be a better place without me. And the next moment I realized that was so, so wrong. And that there is so much to be gained by opening up, connecting. And for me, it's like riding a bike. Life, you can get through life no matter kind of the ups and downs, things that get thrown at you. But if you don't know how life works, it's like riding a bike without knowing how to steer it or where the brake is. It's a god-awful bumpy ride. It can be pretty shitty. But when you know how it works, when you can steer and navigate, when you can slow down and put the brakes on, it makes all the difference. It really does. So I hope I can share something of that understanding of how our mind works and how our experience of life works, because it really will make a difference to people.
I'm sitting listening to you talking, and my mouth is like, because I knew this interview would be revealing, and I do know something of your past, but I didn't know that, about what you just shared. And I too, for the longest time, as a younger man, was not wanting to be here. There wasn't a day went by where I wasn't fantasizing about suicide, thinking the world would be a better place without me here. I ended up in hospital a couple of times with drug overdoses, thinking, Jesus Christ, how much more of this stuff have I got to take to kill myself? What's it going to take? So to hear you say all this is just like, wow, it's not just me. Because I used to say to people at the time, have you ever been so low that you felt suicidal? And they used to say, whether they were just saying that or not, they would say, well, no. I get low sometimes, but never contemplated suicide. It would make you feel even more alone and isolated. So to hear you say this is such a breath of fresh air in one sense. I mean, obviously, it's quite a harrowing subject, but I'm so pleased we can talk so openly about it. So I don't know. So what else did you see on the comeback trail? So that's a big question.
Well, so many things, and as you say, it is wonderful to reach out and connect and realize that, what I've been through and what you've been through, it's just not unusual, and the world that we're in today encourages an even greater kind of comparison of, me on the inside versus all this really hyped up, superimposed images of a life that people want to lead, that they're putting out there on the social networks. And it's so good to say that life can be crap. The rest of my story, if I was to kind of say you are your story, if I label the things that I've done and say that's me, hopefully people who are already here and listening will see that that is so totally not what defines me. So I was abused as a kid. I was raped at 16. I was stabbed when I worked with Scotland Yard. I was kidnapped. I've been defrauded of over £500,000, which was my life savings. Pretty much. And I've also been told I've only got 6 months to live because, having tried to commit suicide and failed, I then contracted leukemia, and quite a violent version. So one of the reasons why I'm so much into health and well-being is because I do believe that the wonderful and powerful world that we have around us has the answer. We have the answer in ourselves, and we have everything we need to live this amazing, light-hearted, joyful, vital life. And the only thing that's getting in the way is what's clogging up in our minds, in our bodies, and in our soul. We have this amazing, I call it the fountain of youth, bubbling inside of us. But it's like, it's like the chimney that's been used for 50 years and no one's ever cleaned it out. We need to clean out all the shit, sorry, excuse my language, it's going on up here. We need to do the same with our bodies. And we need to open the doors to this amazing energy. We are energetic beings. The life force of the universe is, running through us, but most of us can't feel it because we don't know what to look for. And we just get lost in a horrible morass of our own personal thinking. So it's unleashing and cleaning all of that out, really. That's the biggest thing that I've seen that makes a difference.
Yes, wow, you said so much there, almost like glibly, like almost like in passing. Oh, this happened, and I was stabbed, and I was raped at 16 and sexually abused as a child, and it's like, whoa, all massive stuff. And then he said, and I was also given 6 months to live because I developed a particularly aggressive leukemia. I'm guessing that's historical now, and I'm hoping that's historical, no longer the issue. Could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So this happened in my 20s, and I'm now 52. And I think one of the reasons why, I'm very keen to know my own body, I call it being my own Sherlock Holmes. So we're all unique and we're all different. There's no one blueprint. There's no one panacea that works for everybody, but there are principles. And by understanding the principles behind, our life and our bodies and, our spiritual, energetic beings, that really does help you to kind of see inside yourself and know what you need to do for yourself. So I like to share my story as a guide to point people to their own wisdom, but doing exactly what I do may not work for other people. So it's a starting point. And I am very healthy. And the reason I know that my biological age is now only 31 is that because I've had serious health issues when I was younger, I was told I was going to die. I actually have a telomere test, which tells you effectively what's going on in your body, how long you can expect to live, and if there are any, organs or systems within your body that you need to pay particular attention to. So I know I'm pretty damn healthy, and thank the universe for that one.
Yes, it's funny. That was one of the questions I had in front of me to ask you about how you knew that. I'm just going to nip to the comments for a moment. We've got We had Judy Kennedy saying good morning. Good morning, Judy. Nice to see you with us. Thank you for joining. Rob Carpenter, who's down under an Aussie, saying peace and love to you guys and to you, my friend. Alison Duffy saying bless you, Danny. I guess that was in response to my comment. And also bless Leonie as well, my God. Angela Richardson saying what a great topic. Whoops. And Juliet is saying, wow, my total respect to you both. Thank you, Juliet. Oops, I've got a comment coming from Colleen. She's saying, wow, what a humble insight. My sister attempted suicide twice and took a long time to finally truly find out who she is. She's an amazing, intelligent woman now. The struggles are real. In my nursing career, I've dealt a lot with suicide attempts and suicides. It is and can play with your mind in that role. And a lot of soul searching. Thank you for the comment. Colleen, I just wanted to follow up and ask you, Leonie, now when you have some dark thoughts come in, how do you deal with them now? How do you deal with that heavy emotion as opposed to when you would have done back in the day when you're feeling suicidal or even did attempt suicide? What's the difference? How do you see that?
I think that's at the root of people experiencing dark feelings, dark thoughts. Understanding how I saw them then versus now is really, really important. And this might be a long answer, so bear with me, guys, on this one, because I can see that there's a lot of people who are really interested in this subject. So this is key. I think one of the reasons why I didn't like psychology was because it didn't really help move you out of those dark places. It might help you understand how you got there, but it was more about, I describe it as the 4 ways of changing when you're going through any type of transformation. And obviously, if you're having those dark thoughts, if you have suicidal ideation, that's not a good place to stay. So first of all, the very basic changes you can make are material changes. So people always start to change their outside world. And that might work in the short term, but it's things, making sure that you're in a joyful environment, making sure you enjoy your job, having great friends. And they're all wonderful things that, I can't deny they are great to have in place. But content change is superficial. It's coming from the outside in. I like to work absolutely from the inside out. From the inside of us is where all of our experience of life is coming. And I know, Danny, you know this subject inside out, but we are these incredible projecting machines. We are creative beings who effectively are making the world in front of us. We create our own experience of life. 100% of our emotions are coming from the thoughts that we have. So let me just go back to our 4 different ways of changing. So content is looking at the outside world. The next is material change to your thinking. So positive psychology, it's been a bit of a buzzword, a bit of a trend. Changing the material content is encouraging you to think positive thoughts. Personally, I hate that. We have black thoughts and we need to accept them. And there's this wonderful thing called, I think it's the ironic effect. I think it was Tolstoy who said, if you try not to think about a polar bear, as soon as you say the word polar bear, immediately we're all getting visions of a big white bear in our heads, walking across the living room in front of us. And that ironic effect is effectively, as soon as you try not to do something, as soon as you repress something or suppress something or fight it, it comes on really strong. It's like the toddler in the supermarket that you're trying to keep quiet. If you rage back at it, you're just building the energy. You're creating a bigger thing to control. So what I'm saying is you can't change the material thoughts. You can't fight it. It's not possible. So I'm not into changing the content. I'm not into changing what you think about. I'm not into forcing positive psychology. I'm also not into changing the structure. So this is number 3, material change in the outside world. the content of your thinking. I'm not into positive psychology. I'm also not into restructuring. So neuro-linguistic programming, cognitive therapy. I used to do cognitive therapy sort of 25 years ago, but for me, it's kind of old hat, because cognitive therapy is about trying to change your associations with your thinking. So if you're in that dark spot, it's kind of saying, it's okay, there's a different way of looking at that. Let's reassociate those dark thoughts with something else. So every time you get this feeling of, I'm worthless, I'm not worthy, I'm not loved, the world will be a better place, let's reassociate that with something life-giving, something positive. And to me, that is just fighting the same thing again. So this is where, for me, the biggest change that we can make, the transformational change, is not about fighting our thoughts. It's not about controlling our thoughts. It's about befriending them and knowing that our thoughts are self-created, knowing that our thoughts come from inside of us, that they are only thoughts. They know not who we are. They know nothing about the situation we're in. And it's like, I think it was, I forget. What's the guy who wrote, it's a foreign sounding name. I can't think of the chap's name now. I know that in the course that we did together with Jamie Smart, this guy was talked about quite a lot. And forgive me, guys, I really can't think of his name right now. It will come to me before the end of the session. But he talks about, if you sat with your own ego, a negative voice inside your head, and listened to it and absorbed it and paid attention to it, it would be like paying the worst therapist ever. It'd be like saying, I've got suicidal thoughts. I'm not worthy. And that voice would say, actually, you're not. You're a pile of shit. And actually believing that, because we all have that inner critic, the ego, the small kind of personal Leonie, that, the horrible, nasty bit of yourself, which is always trying to put you down. And those thoughts are bullshit. As I said, they're mind-made. They're not real. And I think it's the person who said, you don't need to believe every thought in your head. Thoughts are, like the clouds passing in front of the eternal sunshine of you. There's no point taking life choices by what's going on with the weather. And those thoughts, those black clouds, are like the weather. They are ephemeral and fleeting. And if you think about it, have you ever had a bad thought that carries on forever? Non-stop, unrelenting. It just doesn't happen. So knowing that thoughts are self-created, knowing that thoughts are the flip side of our emotions. Thoughts are the start of an energy, and that energy is then passing through the body as an emotion. And it's only when we hold on to those thoughts, we dwell on those thoughts, get stuck in them, that we give them power. It's that kind of old thing with what you nourish, what you water. Sorry, that's me with my watering can. What you nourish grows. Where you put your energy, it grows. So if you know that it's going to go, that thought, of its own accord, and you're happy to sit with it for that moment, and then just watch it fade.
Yeah, you've said so much there. Thank you, Leonie. I encourage people watching this, maybe respin this video and watch it again. I'm certainly going to be doing that. Crudely speaking, when you were talking, it got me to thinking, crudely speaking, there's two types of spiritual teachers. There's the bottom up and the top down. The bottom up spiritual teacher or practitioner therapist will meet a person exactly where they are and try and get their world, feel into it, and then try and lift them up. Whereas a top down will be reaching down saying, come on, man, it's great up here. The weather's fine, just come on, you'll be all right. And so I know I'm a bottom up type of spiritual teacher, and clearly you are as well. Yeah, wow, you've shared so much there. I don't know where to go. We'll go to the comments for a moment. Alison Duffy followed up by saying, thank you both for sharing so courageously. And yes, and bless Leonie too. Thank you, Alison. Got Barry Gray saying, brilliant. You've just hit my right. You've just hit me right in my soul. Thank you. What a gift. Cheers, mate. I like that was for you, Leonie. We've got Colin saying, yes, totally from inside out to truly find out who you are. And then we've got Alison saying, I love what you're saying about the problem of positive psychology. Yeah. I know I've got a friend who's also a doctor of psychology. He's much more recently achieved that qualification. And we are rarely on a different page. There's, we share and talk, and he rarely sort of disagrees with where I'm coming from. So, and I know he wasn't enamoured with the coursework either, shall we say? But I think he's going to do some changes from the inside out. Certainly weaving his own magic. Before we move on to other things, I want to ask you why it's statistically men are 3 times more likely to take their own life. Do you have any thoughts on why that would be, Leonie?
That's a really interesting question, isn't it? And honestly, I don't know the answer. I have my own theories on what lies behind that. And I think, just looking at society, if you look at what's expected, we're still, it's weird to me, but gender roles are very much in the fore still. Even though there's been a long-term kind of battle for women to kind of equalize from a career platform, and women having increasingly powerful roles and, playing a role in society and government and economics and business, there is still very much an expectation for men as a whole to be the person who is accountable in the family, the person who is the breadwinner, and if not the sole breadwinner anymore, then potentially the main breadwinner. That's, that they're always pictured in films. I know there's a change, there is a change in the zeitgeist, so we are seeing much more female, stronger role models coming through. But if you think about when we grew up, if I'm in my 50s, I'm seeing things through the 60s, 70s, 80s as my formative years. All those films were with male role models who took it on themselves to not just save themselves, but save their family and, oh, by the way, save the world. Men are expected to be these superheroes, for want of a better word, who were not only looking out for themselves, but were looking out for everybody. And my goodness, that is a really hard expectation to live up to. It's impossible. How can you really possibly achieve that? We're all expected to look good, be good, do good, feel good, have an amazing life. That's kind of the role that social networks are playing in our poor old minds now. But I think men have held on to that kind of characteristic, that expectation for much longer. And if that's your expectation, that's a standard, then every day you're falling short, it's going to be knocking you back, knocking you down. And I think men, this is a huge classification, but it's a way of trying to simplify the story. Women are much better on the whole at communicating. We're kind of the more in touch with our heart, our emotions. We're much more happy to express and to share. And that means we can unload our burden much more easily. Whereas men are taught to kind of go into their caves and figure it out for themselves. So they've got this really high expectation. They're not meeting it every day. Oh, and hell, they can't talk about it because they're not allowed to show their emotions. So all of that is just, creating this massive bottleneck, this amazing lump of black, horrible fear that you start to see your life through. It's a horrible, murky, nasty lens. It's oppressive. It's heavy. It doesn't surprise me that men are buckling under that pressure, and more women are equally getting that way. Women have different stresses and strains, and the huge number of roles that women are now expected to play and to kind of keep all those balls in motion, never dropping, always perfection. It's hard. That's one of the, I always talk about the important, one of the things I did learn in psychology was we get to a stage between 6 and 9 when we're developing our concrete consciousness. So, at 1, you figure out that you're a human, an individual human biological entity. You see babies going like this in the mirror, touching their face and seeing the mirror reaction of what they do. That's at 1. At 2, they figure out they're an emotionally separate entity. Up until 2, babies, when they're hungry, think everyone's hungry. Up until 2, they think I'm thirsty, everyone's thirsty. When they start to see that their own kind of tantrums and outbursts aren't mirrored in the outside world, they grasp that they're emotionally separate. When we get to the age of 6 and 9, we've kind of passed, we're starting to learn language, and we understand that we're a separate being, and we start to develop our ego. But the big thing we start to develop is the rules for living. And this is where the shit hits the fan. Sorry, my language is terrible today, but men in particular and women, we're building these rules, and those rules are things like, it's not obvious rules. It's things like, if I work hard, I'll get paid well. If I work hard, then I might, have all the money to do the things I'd like to do. If I go to school, if I go to university, I might get the right job that I can really excel at. And if I really excel at my job, well, then maybe I'll meet the right partner. And it's those types of rules, it's rules about being late, how you share love, how you show your power, how you have your voice heard, all these really important fundamental things that we do every day, completely subconsciously. We develop those rules between 6 and 9. And oh my God, we're not questioning anything. We're accepting everything that we see. And we grow up holding on to those rules. Some people call them self-limiting beliefs, because it's where you learn, I'm a shy person, I don't want to have my voice heard, or I'm not worthy, I don't expect to be loved. And those rules are, it could be awesome rules that you're creating, I don't know, but on the whole, the people I see are creating rules that make them feel smaller than they are, make them less than they are, hold them back from having their voice heard, hold them back from singing their song. And it's those rules that I always try to break down and to get underneath, because you've lived with them for so long, you can't even see them. And I think those rules are really, really strong with men in particular, and and they're hard ones to kind of face into. So that's a very long answer, guys.
Beautiful answer. I totally threw that question on you, as I have done them all. I just want to pay tribute to you, Leonie, because we weren't meant to be talking about this subject today. It was only in light of Keith Flint taking his life that I reached out to Leonie, said, "Do you fancy talking a bit about this?" And bless your heart, you were like, yeah, let's go for it. So what I plan to do now, I'm going to go to the comments, and then we're going to switch tact and start talking about remaining youthful into your senior years, etc. So where are we at now? So Robert Carpenter said, "I've always felt that life was easier for women than men in a sense, because they were much more in touch with the life-death cycle, and also men do tend to keep their feelings more hidden. Perhaps he means, or to themselves than women, just a theory." Thanks for your comment, Rob. Colleen saying, yes, I agree with Barry Gray. And then Colleen's also saying, yes, totally. Anyway, thank you for Alison. Oh, that's lovely. Alison saying, I could listen to Leonie talk all day. I quite agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
That's your heart. I want to thank you for covering that topic so beautifully. And I'm sure you've helped and inspired and got people to think in different ways. If we can move track and start talking about aging or not aging, as the case may be, how your thoughts and feelings and lifestyle may influence that. So I'm just going to give you the floor to start bringing us on that.
Thank you. I mean, this is, there's so many subjects that are close to my heart, but this is another kind of sharing. So this has become really important to me. So I think Danny knows this, but my poor old dad is dying. He's in the last stage of congestive heart failure, and he has dementia. And one of the reasons why I'm so keen for people to understand the choices that they have in their lives is that seeing my own parents' lives shrink, and the fear that they're both facing, and the loneliness and the hardship of nursing someone through heart failure and stroke and dementia, it's harrowing. It really is. That full respect to my mother, who's doing this all on her own. She's chosen to nurse my dad alone, but she's in her 80s, so it's really hard to watch them and see just that, if they'd made a few small changes in their lives, if they'd been more conscious, then you can choose. I believe that you can choose to live younger, longer. I believe that you can choose a way of living that keeps you vital and keeps you healthy and keeps you in a state of well-being. We might be born into innate well-being, but it's so easy in the 21st century to lose sight of that. So my work is holistic. I talk about living consciously, so getting clarity of mind. So this to me is psychological principles. This is about understanding how life really works. And that's why I was talking about the analogy of riding a bike. So if you know how life works, you can have that, that joyful ride downhill with the wind blowing in your hair and feeling the true bliss, of the gift of life. So getting into a clear state, uncluttering the negative thinking, opening up your mind to see the beauty and to feel grateful. That's the kind of grounding point for me. That's the inside out way of living a life younger and living a life healthier for longer. But I also talk about body. So for me, it's about loving your body. It's as simple as that. If we truly love, the meat suit that we wear that carries us around kind of loyally, that's always there for us, that, we pour drink down it. We basically cut, I've done horrible things to my body in attempts to kind of kill the poor thing off, and it's still there going strong. And because of, having the leukemia, I've learnt how the body works. I've learnt amazing things. So, here's an example. So most of us think that 100% of our DNA is human. So if I was to ask you, Danny, or you guys who are loyally listening in here, what percent of us is human, do you think?
Ooh, I've never even thought of that as a potential question. Never made the answer. But I would have thought it was 100% DNA if that would have been my answer, but clearly it's not.
It would make sense, wouldn't it? And I learned about this about 5 years ago, but a staggering 90% of the DNA that is in and on us is not human at all. Wow. So we have this massive ecosystem of, it's a bit like you see those wonderful programs of David Attenborough with little fish kind of cleaning off the microbes on a huge whale or something. We're kind of like that huge whale, and we have this kind of soup, this wonderful organic microorganism soup that are doing all these things for us. And actually that, that it's called your microbiome, the human microbiome. And this soup is now seen as not only affecting our, the main organs, so our digestive tract, our heart and lungs, our skin, but it also affects our emotions. So a lot of people who have maybe gone through the problem of emotional eating, who have been trying to lose weight or who are addicted to certain things, it's quite often nothing to do with your human DNA at all. It's to do with your microbiome. And there's something called the vagus nerve. I'll try not to get too technical, but effectively that's sending signals from your gut to your brain, telling you what emotions to have, telling you what to eat, telling you what to do. So, we like to think that we're doing our own thing and we're completely in control of our own bodies, but even as a biological unit, and we're so much more than that, we're not even human. So, it's things like that, and things like epigenetics. So another growing scientific study that says it's about the interaction between our DNA and what's going on in the outside world. There's a wonderful quote about Mother Nature loading the gun, but it's us who are pulling the trigger. So my program is about understanding the environmental, biological, neurobiological triggers that we have complete control over and that allow us to switch off gene sequences. So, I ate myself to health. I was told I had 6 months to live and there was nothing that medical science could do for me. So I eat very well, but I still have nice sweet things. I eat a lot of fat in my diet because I've now seen scientifically that you need to eat fat to burn fat. So one of the reasons why ladies and men out there, we store fat in those horrible places like your belly and your muffin tops, and all of that fat is being stored because the 21st century way of eating is all about sugar and processed foods. And sugar is like it's like straw in the fire. It burns with a bright, it's easy to burn, a bright fire. It goes off. It stops you from burning the deeper resources of fat. So, our wonderful bodies are like a Ferrari, and we're treating them like some old jalopy and feeding them crap and sugar. So, I could really get on my soapbox, but, I've sort of developed some really clear biological and metabolic principles that allow you to understand your body, that allow you to live in health and vitality, no matter how old you are, and allow you to switch off the genes that might cause cancer, that might cause dementia or Alzheimer's. So for me, this is so important, not least because I'm seeing my own parents go through hell, but because, we now live, we can expect to live to our 80s. Our great-grandparents kind of died off in their 60s. Or younger, they died of all these infectious diseases. So wonder of modern science has come in and wiped out infectious disease. What it's left us with is a longer life that is less healthy. So more and more people are getting these chronic conditions. And instead of, growing old gracefully and enjoying a healthy life until the day we die, we're getting diabetes, we're overweight, our hearts are under pressure, we're getting strokes and we're getting heart attacks and we're getting cancer. And so much of that has to do with not only what we put into our body, but the toxic environment. And, I've talked about this wonderful bubbling fountain of youth that we all have, but our brains are clogged up thinking that we're crap and we're not worth, we're not worth the thing you'd wipe off your shoe. We fill our bodies with crap, and that means we can't access this wonderful infinite energy of the soul. So for me, it's about giving you elite health and rebalancing your biology, giving you the clarity of how life really works. And spiritually, it's about knowing and embracing who you really are. I ask people, who are you? And a bit like I shared at the beginning, you can give this huge story of the things that I've achieved, the things that have happened, the roles that I play. But that's not you. It's so not you. If you imagine you were in an accident and let's say you had, and this is awful, but let's say you had to have your hand chopped off because you'd mangled your hand so badly. Would you feel like you were less of a person? Would the consciousness, the aliveness inside you, would that feel any less because you had one hand less? I'll ask you, Danny, because you've got the mouthpiece.
No, it undoubtedly would in the short term. It's bound to, because that's part of the human experience. But I would suspect and suggest that once you'd healed physically from that and emotionally, you would still feel alive, conscious, creative, and all the rest of it. That's my assertion.
Absolutely. Of course, losing a part of your body is a huge thing. I'm not being flippant, but my point is that the energetic being, the consciousness that's you, doesn't get changed if there's some physical damage. It's not even contained within your body. I studied quantum mechanics for a laugh. You too.
Yeah.
And physicists will now walk side by side with spiritualists, and they will absolutely prove to you that there is a part of you which, when you die, weighs so many grams. So as the body is dying, the spirit, the energetic part of you leaves. But that energetic part is massive. It's infinite. It's not bound by time and space. The physicists describe the quantum field, which is people who do the kind of a little bit kind of woo out there manifesting. They will talk about the quantum field as this energetic body that we're all connected to. That if you suggest mentally in a certain way, and you envision the life that you want to lead, well, you're starting off the powerful energetic vibration of that thought. And when you put that to the quantum field, then those things come back to you. The quantum field is us. That for me is the difference between those manifestors who think there's something apart from who we are. It's the connection of all human spirits, the connection of all of our energy is real and quantifiable. And that's what gives us our amazing resilience and our energy. And when you've seen that, when you've seen who you really are, when you've seen that it's not just this small body, I can tell you that's a life changer. The one thing I didn't tell you is that when I was 26, I drowned. I was in Oman visiting my lovely twin brother. And I stupidly, after 45 years of drought, they had one of their most severe floods. So I went whitewater rafting on not a proper raft, but on my lilo. Bit dumb. So I was enjoying the sunshine, enjoying this beautiful river, and I heard rushing water, and I assumed it was the river kind of widening and going over a few rocks. I was wrong. So there I am, gripping onto my lilo, trying to look further ahead down the river, only to see that I was going to go down a waterfall. Well, okay, waterfall, there's water at the bottom, I'll be fine. I held on to my lilo, obviously splooshed down this big waterfall. That wasn't the bad bit. The bad bit was at the bottom of the waterfall, it then became an underground water system. So I got sucked underwater, but also sucked underground. So I was completely immersed in water with rock face above my head, still holding on to my lilo, thinking that would be my saving grace. So I did all this, I'd been taught if you're being dragged underwater that you need to relax and let go. Well, I tell you what, relaxing and letting go when you're being smashed into the rock and you can't breathe is really hard work. So I did my best. But after, 60 seconds and then another 60 seconds, you're really struggling to breathe. You've panicked too much at the beginning and you start to breathe in water. And that's when you know that this is it. This is the end point. And so many wonderful things happened to me. So I'll jump to the end of the story. The end of the story is a whole mile later. My body and my husband's body at the time were popped out. The underground water system came back onto the surface. The lilos popped up first, and then our two bodies popped up. And there was an Omani tribe, couldn't speak a word of English, doing their laundry. I don't know whether this had happened before. But if they hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here to tell the tale. But they resuscitated both of us. And then, civilization was called because we were in the middle of nowhere, having gone off into the desert to do this rafting. But we were revived. But during that moment, those moments, I think it was about half an hour of death, actual death. I remember, it was a near-death experience, for want of a better word. And I've read so many books on the subject since then, but my experience was blissful, blissful oneness of hearing and seeing everything that was happening to my body, but knowing it was okay, because the thing that I thought that was Leonie Morris was still there. There was no end, only a beginning. And there was bliss, light, love, understanding, a beautiful purity. And it was the most wonderful thing. And seeing that and knowing that that's there for us already, it's always there, and that we're always connected, and that this life experience that we have is so small, so tiny. Oh my goodness, that puts everything into perspective. So if ever anyone is in despair, if you know who you really are, and you've seen that bliss and that wonder, there is absolutely nothing to fear. Absolutely nothing.
Wow. To say that you're full of surprises is a major, major understatement. You're just coming out with so many beautiful stories, and they might not start off being beautiful, but they certainly end up being as such, from leukemia to rape to drowning and the list goes on. I'm just going to go to the comments section where I catch my breath.
I'm moving room because I need to plug in, but I'm still with you.
No problem. Picking up on what you were saying earlier about genes not necessarily being human, in fact, the contrary.
You back?
Yep. Yeah, still here. So Robert was saying he's obviously a fair bit gorilla, which I find quite humorous. Well, the picture quality is much lighter there. And Shane, who has been a bit of a regular on these, is saying, I do not believe I'm in control of my body because I cannot stop eating. It's hard not to eat the bad foods, but I just can't seem to help myself. I do have vegetables and fruit, protein, but just a huge chunk food binge lately. So you still there, Leonie? You seem frozen. No. I guess moving room, the Wi-Fi is not working as well. And it looks like there's like brick around you as well. So well, hopefully she'll come back on in a moment. That's my wish anyway. It's my hope. So thanks for that comment, Shane. Hopefully Leonie will be able to pick up that in a moment. Are we still live? Yes, we are. And Shane is also saying, I would still be me. It's my personality who makes me who I am, not my body parts. Yep, that's right. Cheers, mate. And then Alison Duffy is saying, amazing. So let's see if Leonie can get back on. Even if she can't, what an amazing lady she is. What an amazing, fantastic, open, honest, authentic lady she is. Full of surprises. I've learned so much as well myself. Whoop, she's gone altogether now. I know Leonie's website is helpmestayyoung.com. It's a website I was on just recently, to be honest. Obviously doing a little bit of background research for this interview. There's a quote she has on our interview. It says, growing old is no more than a bad habit, which a conscious person need never form. I guess that's the message throughout this interview. If you're more conscious of your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and what it is you're eating, get exercise, and don't believe those horrible, dark thoughts when they come in, and just befriend them rather than believing them. Just allow them the space to be there without becoming fully immersed and rolling with them, because that's when you end up down a deep, dark, spiraling hole, and that's when you get into deep, dark depression that can last for weeks, months, or even years, to be honest. I'll see if Leonie has sent me a message or anything. Otherwise, I'll be breaking into songs and telling jokes. It'll be going much longer. I'm kidding, of course. No, she hasn't. If anybody wants to reach out for Leonie, like I say, helpmestayyoung.com, and she's got a Facebook group as well, which I'll put in the comments, called Forever Young, which is a really cool group. She's in there most days sharing and posting really inspiring and conscious stuff. If you've got any questions for Leonie, I'm sure she'll drop back onto this broadcast and follow up as well. I know she also mentioned before we came on live that she's having, what the hell do you call it? Internet issues with her provider. They said they keep going off in the area, so I'm guessing that's possibly what's happened. I just want to thank you all for jumping on and being a part of this. I know, as I say, I've learned so much. Please feel free to reach out to Leonie and Alison saying, can you do another interview with Leonie? Yeah, I'm sure she'd be up for this and could talk on so many other fascinating subjects as well. Lynn saying, love this, agreed. Lynn, thank you. Juliet saying, amazing, thank you both. Yeah. So I think on that note, I'm going to finish for now. Much love to you all from Leonie and myself. Speak to you all soon. Bye for now.